TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Summerslam promo, when the infamous promo where you actually had to curse by accident with Rick Rude. Did you get heat for that at all or not?
Not really. That was a pre-taped interview, and that was tape number 1. And the tape guy was supposed to cue up tape number 5. I did think when I was backstage and Vince was at the gorilla position, which everybody in the know knows what the gorilla position is, and got on the headphones and said, Jesse, cover for Okerlund. Did you hear what he said? And Jesse came right out on the air and says, yeah, leave it to some foul-mouthed guy like Okerlund to say something like that on the air. He should be ashamed of himself. He absolutely buried me.
Right. Wow. Right. Who are your favorite and least favorite guys, I guess, to interview and work with during this time period?
Well, I had a ton of favorites. And really, as I look back at it, this question that is frequently asked of me. I had one altercation with Tony Atlas. And Tony at that time, well, he was real big, very muscular. He was a little tough to work with. But, he was coming in there and he was out of control.
Right.
Tony has since, he and I sat at the Hall of Fame, and I like Tony Atlas today. He's cleaned his life up, but he was, a great piece of talent. Had a hell of a body.
Right.
Whether it was man-made or not, who knows?
When you did TV and you did interviews, did anybody besides Tony Atlas give you problems as far as, not you problems, but the company problems? They weren't able to cut a promo and retake after retake after retake, and you're like, come on.
You would ask that question. Well, would you guys like to guess? I could tell you who the most impossible guy on interviews that I had to work with.
Warrior?
Ultimate Warrior. And you know what? If I were on the telephone with him, I wouldn't have a clue what he said because I never knew where this guy was going, and I don't think anybody else did. I think the whole thing was a smokescreen. Sees it in the stars and this, but he had some charisma. His look was a very hot deal.
Were you there the night that you were when Warrior tried to hold up Vince at SummerSlam?
Oh, yes, I was.
What are your memories of that?
Well, I remember the conversations, should we or shouldn't we? And it all came down to one decision, and that was Vince's decision, because it was for a lot of money. My recollection tells me it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000. Does that jibe with what you understood? If somebody was going to hold me up, number one, it was wrong. Got a big pay-per-view event, premier event. He wanted to be paid more money than he agreed to right before the event, or he wasn't going to perform. No room in this business for somebody like that. No room in any business for somebody with that kind of a mindset. I'll remember Jim Halbig for that.
Right.
Because after that, you couldn't trust him. He could not be trusted.
Did you want it in a check, or did Vince have to wire it to his account? I mean, was it a check? Because if it was a check, you could just stop payment on it, or
well, I don't know about the ins and outs of that.
Right.
Suffice to say, he never got the money anyway.
Right, exactly. How important was your role, or that of the promo guy, in getting someone over?
Well, I think that was what I was being paid for, to get the guy over, to get the angle or the issues over, was part of the announcer's job. Just understood that there were some buttons that I would have to push to make that happen. And, I don't know if I was conscientiously doing it, but it got done during the course of the interview.
Who would go over the bullet points with you for promos during this time?
I worked with a couple of different people. Howard Finkel, my favorite.
Right.
Howard drive you nuts, but on the other hand, he was only doing a job. The most colorful guy that I worked with on promos after he retired from the ring was Rene Goulet. And Rene, I remember when he came to this country, he spoke no English at all. And after a period of 25 years, hadn't improved that situation by much. But nonetheless, he was a good guy, enjoyed his company, and we got the job done, which was the name of the game.
He started out as an announcer, I think, for WWF early on. and then you moved to an interviewer for Vince. Why and how did that change, and why did that come about?
Tell you the truth, I realized my shortcomings, and as an announcer, I wasn't really an announcer. I replaced Pat Patterson and was a color commentator. I am no more qualified for color commentator than Larry King.
Right.
You might be an announcer, but that doesn't make you necessarily a wrestling color commentator. Jerry Lawler, Jesse Ventura, those guys were.
I guess you seem to be more relaxed than most wrestling announcers. Did veterans ever take that as a sign of disrespect, or that you weren't taking the business seriously, or did anyone ever approach you about something you might have said about them on commentary?
Never. I'd been told by, there's a time for levity, and there's a time where you got to be dead serious. I think another Minneapolis guy by the name of Gordon Soley did it so well. He could have fun with the product, but he did such a good job of selling the angles, and he did it with credibility, I think, because he was serious 90% of the time. What would you say, guys? 50-50? Little levity here and there?
Right.
Yeah. But when it came time to do business, and you had to be serious, I think I worked that pretty good through the years.
What are your thoughts right now on Vince making good-looking women and guys interviewers these days as compared to guys with credibility and wrestling background?
To each his own, to tell you the truth. I watch Fox News, and I didn't watch Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw because I like the little leg.
Right. So,
hey, I'm one of the guys, and that's kind of the name of the game today.
Right.
I think, though, to get an angle over, I think if it comes to something where you got to carry the load, then you got to have a broadcaster or somebody that can lead that conversation, can lead that interview.
What are your thoughts on WWE looking out for the pro wrestling world for announcers and apparently preferring that you don't know anything about the business?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. The one thing that I found out in broadcasting in general today, when I broke into the business, you had to do the cup deer, you had to have a voice, you had to have a delivery, and today that might be the way things are going. They should know a little bit about broadcasting, whether or not they know anything about wrestling. If an individual producer feels that way, so be it. We better educate them in a hell of a hurry, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Rob, to tell you the truth, I don't know if I ever really wanted to do it full time because all the time I was working in Minneapolis, I was either working in television sales, and then I went in with a couple of my friends, and we started an ad agency that specialized in retail advertising, and I liked that a lot. Both of the guys that I went into, unfortunately, we lost early on in the fight there to cancer, both of them. So I then kind of leaned when Vince McMahon came to me in mid 1983, talking about this vision that he had for a wrestling company, and that cable TV was starting to come in, and there were some things that we could do nationally, never mentioned globally, by the way, but at that juncture nationally that we could do. I decided, along with a little urging from guys like Pat Patterson, definitely from Hulk Hogan, that maybe it's the move I should make. And here again, money did play a role in my decision making.
Right.
It usually does.
TitleMatchNetwork.com